everybody's really on the same page. There are some minor differences between the bills, but we're very pleased with the process and how it's moving forward.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin telling our own Trish Regan he's pleased with the way tax reform is shaping up despite major differences in the House and Senate bills. But is everyone else happy? Here now is Steve Forbes, Forbes media chairman, one-time presidential candidate who's pushing a flat tax. And Steve, we're getting about as far away as a flat tax as you can get. But first, to the notion that Steve Mnuchin is pleased, I don't imagine you are.
No, that's a Washington version of whistling past the graveyard. You've got more complexity now. You've got huge differences. It really is, David, a betrayal of President Trump. The Republicans should have had a simple tax cut if you weren't going to do a flat tax. Instead of getting all of these things, got everyone upset. So they should go back to basics. Do the 20 or 15% corporate rate, cut rates on the personal side across the board immediately, make it effective immediately, and call it a day and come back some other day.
Is it possible to do that? I mean, is it possible for the president to come back from Asia and just say, look, this thing is a total mess. We're not going to have the same wipeout that happened with the health care reform thing. Let's start over. Let's do a very simple tax cut plan and get it done quickly. Is that possible?
I hope he does, after being away from the country for a week and a half, and saw what the inmates at the asylum did. And but
you think if he had been here, this mess between the House and the Senate versions wouldn't have happened?
Oh, I think you'd have seen tweets all over the place on that one. And 7 brackets, come on. So I think you get a bill, but I think we can see it's going to be a bad bill, the worst of both sides.
Well, let's talk about the all the differences. If we can put up on the screen the GOP tax bills compared. We've compared the House and the Senate bills, and we start out with that number of brackets. We go from 4 brackets in the House bill to 7, which is what we have now. And there's something called bracket creep, by the way. The more money you get paid, the higher up in brackets you get. That's one reason Ronald Reagan wanted to slash the number of brackets, is to stop bracket creep. With 7 brackets, you've got bracket creep built right into this thing.
Absolutely. And so instead of getting a bill, what they should have done, instead of being slaves to the Congressional Budget Office, whose numbers are make-believe anyway, what they should have done is say, here, we know we're going to get growth if we do this thing right, and just do an across-the-board tax cut. And instead of saying, well, we'll give this a credit, not a credit, kitty credits and all that kind of stuff, the kitty credit thing is morphed into welfare.
Right.
It pays you to have baby. I mean,
and it's costing more, and it's more complex. The two things that they said this tax plan would not have. They said it was going to be cheaper and easier, less difficult, less complex, less difficult to figure out how to do it. It's becoming far more complex than it was.
And with the prospect now, remember, in the early 80s, when the Republicans had that delay, they lost 26 seats in 1982 in the congressional elections.
Well, that's also because we were in a recession at the time. The economy, now, fairness to the people in the tax committee back then, part of the recession was caused by the Fed squeezing inflation.
Absolutely.
But it could have been mitigated tremendously if we had a tax cut in effect in 1982. We might have got out of that recession much earlier than we did.
Yes, and people would have seen the higher paychecks, and they would have seen, okay, this thing is going to get better. Now, you've got a lot of confusion. Small businesses, are they going to get a cut? Businesses, are we really going to get that corporate tax cut? Or if the Democrats get control of the House and start impeachment hearings, who knows what's going to happen? All this confidence.
That's a good point. If you delay the corporate cut a year and the Democrats win the House, you may never get a cut in the corporate rate.
Yes, and you're going to have a lot more uncertainty. So you want to be in a position where the economy is growing, the Republicans keep control, so businesses have faith in the future. But right now, they're wondering, they're already given up on the death tax. They're already talking about postponing the corporate tax. And in terms of the instant expensing, well, 5 years, are the Democrats going to renew that? Hello?
Very quickly, last week my feeling was, half a loaf is better than none. But is this even less than half a loaf right now?
It's less than half a loaf, and the bread is going stale.
Steve Forbes, good to see you, Steve. I wish it was a happier conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.